Welcome to another DorkLair collecting video. Today I have another very special occasion. Four Horsemen Studios have sent me their next Figura Obscura. You may recall I did the Headless Horseman back in October. That was such a blast. I was super honored. And again, thank you to Four Horsemen for including me in these things. It's a lot of fun. And I'm here to give you my reaction to whatever the heck is in this box, even though you already know what it is. And I have no clue. Like, I try to think here what it could be. You know, back before last Christmas, you know, like there was kind of, it seemed like a theme where it was monstrous or enchanted creatures or bad guys type things. You had the Krampus, you had the Headless Horseman, right? And then Father Christmas, they just went like with this straight traditional classic kind of thing. So this could go anywhere. So all I can really do is say what I would hope to see in the line someday, maybe, right? Like, I'd love to see some maybe Arthurian legends or English folklore, maybe like Robin Hood, something like that, or even some mythology, like maybe an Egyptian god, or I could see them going like east and doing maybe some kind of legendary samurai. My biggest fear is that like it's going to be something obscure, right? Figura Obscura, and like I'm not gonna know what it is or something like that, and embarrass myself on camera. But yeah, so I'm gonna unbox this thing right now, share my reaction, and then after that we'll get into a deep dive video review so you can have an informed purchase on this item. All right, so here we go. Let's see what we got in this box right here. And get this thing open. Pardon the camera. I don't do this kind of thing very often. I should create a setup where, you know, I can do unboxings like this. I'll put my knife down. Okay, here we go. Here's the unboxing. Let's see what's in this box right here. Oh boy. Oh wow, this is cool. Okay, here we go. This is the Monkey King. Now, I'm not sure my lighting is going to really show it here, but here we have the Monkey King. And I'm going to get this wrapper off in just a second, but the back has a whole story. It's a long one this time, so I'm going to hold off on that. I'll show it close up in the video. Wow, the Monkey King. And I'm not super knowledgeable about the Monkey King. I'm not like deep into Chinese lore or mythology or anything like that, but it is a really cool character. So let's take a look at what this thing looks like. I just want to get the box open so that I can, yeah, there we go. Let's get this box open so that we can see this thing, and then we'll get into a much deeper review. But I want to have a reaction here of what this thing. Oh, this is like a cool. It's got like a foiling on there. This is a much different packaging. I mean, it's the same shape and size, and it's got this window, but that's a very cool box. It's like a flat or like a matte finish right there. All right, here we go. Ready? Oh, look at that head sculpt. Okay, let me just share this right here. So we've got a nice mountain backdrop right there. And then, wow, that's a lot of new stuff. Take a look at this. Oh, my lighting is not good here. My lighting is not optimized for this. So let me grab this light right here. Yeah, there we go. That is pretty darn cool. There's a ton of new stuff on here. I mean, it's looking like it's using the cloth arms, you know, the sculpted 1.0 style cloth arms, but there's all sorts of armor on top of everything. It looks like new gauntlets, multiple new head sculpts. And like I said, these are a great experience to learn about something cultural, because Jeremy's write-ups are incredible, and I'm looking forward to really diving in to the Monkey King. Anyway, thanks again, Four Horsemen, for sending this to me. I'm super pumped to get into this review, and here we go. DorkLair. Welcome welcome to another DorkLair action figure review. Today I have the distinct honor of getting a first look at the new Figura Obscura from Four Horsemen Studios, Sun Wukong the Monkey King. One of the coolest things about the Figura Obscura line is its educational nature, and I always learn something new, especially this time with a character who I do not have a ton of familiarity with, aside from some visuals and, a couple mentions here and there in various comic books. I don't have a deep knowledge of, Chinese mythology and folklore and stuff. So this has been a pretty cool opportunity for me because I got to spend the week learning about this character, kind of diving in, watching some YouTube videos, reading some, informational pages, of course, reading the back of the box, which has an excellent write-up, and Four Horsemen always do a great job. They usually have a very in-depth article on their website. I'm sure this is no exception. And yeah, so the Monkey King comes from oral tradition and folklore and mythology of China, but was really kind of collected and solidified in a 16th century novel called Journey to the West that really tells a grander story of all of his different adventures, interactions with gods, travels, quests and things like that. So really cool character. He kind of starts off as just like the leader of the monkeys, but over time he starts to seek immortality. He seeks the heavens and the secrets of the gods and acquires all of these relics and powers and all of these different magical abilities and becomes incredibly powerful and has various adventures and antics and is, somewhat of a trickster god and all sorts of really cool elements to this character's story. Read the box, read the write-up on Four Horsemen Studios. Lots of good stuff to just dive in and explore the Monkey King. One little factoid that I came across is that Sun Wukong in China is the name, and in Japan they called him Sun Goku, which was the inspiration for Goku of Dragon Ball Z fame, and it's the reason why he originally had a monkey tail. As far as release goes, this one is running very similar to the usual Figura Obscura releases with a couple little differences. So this has 2 drops as usual, Saturday morning and Saturday night, May 13th. So if you're watching this video when it comes out, we should be right in between the drops. The morning drop should have happened. It may or may not have sold out by the time you're watching this. And then if it did sell out, then later tonight there will be another drop and you'll have another chance to get it directly from Four Horsemen Studios. $60 is the price. There are going to be some other items like a pin and a water bottle and maybe a couple other things. And just one thing to point out, the one difference is that this, unlike the other Figura Obscura drops, is technically a pre-order situation. So this is expected to ship the end of June and then continue. It should take about a few weeks for them to get them all out. So it should continue into July. So if you do order this, just realize it's a little different. You're going to have to be a little more patient on this one. But let me tell you, this thing is worth the wait. Now, I'm not an expert on the Monkey King, so I may be off on this. But as far as I can tell, they have done an excellent job of bringing in some of the key elements of this character between the armor, all of the crazy accessories that are very accurate to the story. You've got the Phoenix Feather Cap, the Iron Staff, he's got the swap out feet for the cloud walking, and all sorts of really cool accessories that come straight out of the lore, out of the mythology and the stories, specifically Journey to the West. And this, to me, is the complete package, from the sculpture to the cloth goods and all the accessories, the swap out heads and face plates and all this stuff. A lot of great stuff here. And the package itself is incredible. I mean, you have this gold embossed line work around the edges of the art. It's got a very flat, little different feel to the package, even though it's the same shape and everything as the usual Figura Obscura stuff. The feel to it is very smooth and flat rather than glossy and shiny. And of course, all of the wonderful artwork by Nate Barch. You have the magnetized trifold cover. The inner packaging has some great artwork. Just the complete package, all the way from the artwork to the figure itself. Anyway, let's get into this review. Okay, so zooming in for a nice close-up of the portrait here. One of 4 portraits. Now, the setup is that there's a faceplate and a head. There's 2 different heads, and there's 4 different faceplates. So the first head has the cap for the phoenix feathers on there, which comes separate, and I would highly recommend that you heat this up when you're plugging these in. Heat the holes, leave these cool, heat the holes and plug those in there. And then you have the other head sculpt, which has the crown that is like, it's sort of like a taming thing. It tames him and keeps him controllable on one of his missions on his journey to the west. And so this is the same face plate portrait with a different paint job. And then you have the expressive screaming head sculpt and the same version of paint job on the other one. So all four of these faceplates can be interchangeable between these two heads. So really nice versatility there. Of course, the trade-off is going to be you're going to see a seam at certain angles. But at the important angles, like from the front and from the side, it's not that noticeable. So I actually kind of prefer this. Kind of results in 8 different looks. So that probably wouldn't have been cost effective to do 8 different head sculpts. And while we're on the head, we can take a look at those feathers and that cap on this particular head. And it's very intricate, man. The details on this thing, the sculpture is like, it's impressive. You have the paintwork giving it like, depth. And then of course we have these very intricately sculpted, like even there's some wings sculpted in there. Just a lot of really cool little details. And the wings, or the feathers themselves have some patterns going on there. So really cool. And you can kind of twist these around and position them however you want. Of course, we have some cloth goods going on. They're wired, so this wire runs throughout the entire, I don't know what you call this, bandana, cape. So yeah, so you can move this around and it'll kind of like sit in various positions. Very nice touch right there. And there is just so much new on this figure. Like you can barely see the reused parts here. They have upped the game when it comes to Figura Obscura. That is to say the least. And then let me remove the head so that you can see the collar piece here. This is a very standard fit Mythic Legions 1.0 collar. Just looks a lot different than your typical ones, but it pegs in right behind the neck there. And there's how he looks with the head on without the scarf. And then the chest is a chest plate. So if you're familiar with Valak or Bardric and some of these other Alithia Wave figures that introduced the removable chest plate, this piece is separate, and then, like the back piece is like the reused part there. So that's one of those little innovations they did that allows for a lot of different looks without as much physical tooling every single time. And then you have the elaborate belt that is made up of multiple pieces. But let's see if we can get the cloth goods out of the way. Tons of details there. I mean, you have these circlet patterns up there. Down here you have just a textured piece with some, fine sculpted details there. Here you have more of that chainmail. Like the feathers, the chainmail armor is part of the story. It's one of the items he acquires along his way on his quest for more and more power and immortality. This piece is a separate accessory. This is just like a gourd container that potentially has the wines of heaven in there. And then there's a look at the back of the belt. You have this sculpted knot right there that's glued in. And so you can see the softness of the belt. And then even where the tail plugs in, that's got some decoration right there. And the tail is a bendy wire piece. And so you can get a lot of movement out of that tail. And the wire goes almost throughout. I think it stops maybe right about here. But tons of movement in that tail. It's a really long tail too. The only other parts besides the back of the chest that are reused are the cloth sculpted arms and the cloth sculpted upper legs. And then everything else is brand new. Here's a look at his arm guards. You have some little sort of tassel details here. Lots of great silvers and golds, and just every little detail is a little work of art throughout this whole figure. The fur details are great. Here's a look at his hand, and he comes with multiple sets of hands. Got these kind of elongated monkey hands, and I think this piece might be longer. I'll compare it after. This might be a little bit longer than your usual forearm piece. Cloth goods designed and prototyped as usual by C. Jessam, and they have wires and they thread through these holes. This one being like a long ribbon type piece here, and it comes all the way out to the other side. And then he's got a skirt that comes over the top here, also wired, and a loincloth behind the sculpted loincloth. So there's just a ton of wired cloth goods throughout this figure. And then here's a look at the lower parts of the legs, and still just crazy, crazy detail. These I think are shorter, just to give him a little bit of a shorter stature. These being a little bit shorter than your typical, knight or barbarian style lower legs. Of course, we've got his monkey feet right here. So detailed. Look at all that. And yeah, this is just an incredible looking figure. I am so blown away how awesome this thing is. All right, and then here's a zoomed out look at the Monkey King, who stands just under 6.5 inches to the top of the head. For comparisons, of course, we are going to take a look at the Monkey King next to the other Figura Obscura figures. On the left is Krampus, and there you can see an example of a 1.0 buck. What I mean by that is the sort of original body from Mythic Legions. And then on the right, we do have Father Christmas being the smaller buck, the 2.0 size body from Mythic Legions that was introduced with the elves and those other sort of slimmer characters. Here we have him next to the Tactics 2-pack. Of course, Gorgo on the left does have a head swap, but Attila on the right is stock. And you can see those 1.0 Mythic Legions figures are slightly taller because those lower legs are a little bit longer. Getting into some other lines, here we have the movie realization figures, these samurai themed Star Wars figures. On the left is C-3PO, on the right is Darth Maul. Here we have a fellow primate on the left, Animal Warriors of the Kingdom Chunari, and on the right is a Mezco 112 Collective tactical suit Batman from Justice League with a head swap. A couple familiar superhero lines. On the left is a Mafex Dark Knight Returns Superman, and on the right is a Marvel Legends Retro Green Goblin. On the smaller side, a couple Hasbro figures. Here is the classified Cobra Trooper on the left, and the Black Series Ahsoka Tano on the right. And last but not least, a couple bigger figures. We have on the left the NECA Ultimate War Duke from Dungeons & Dragons, and on the right from the 2022 San Diego Comic-Con 2-pack, the Skeletor on the Masterverse body. For accessories, it does come with this beaded necklace that you can swap out for a bunch of different looks. For example, you can pop the head right off, and then take the scarf off, put the beads on, scarf on, put the head back on and go with the beaded look and the scarf, or you can even just go with just the beaded look right there, and just super easy to pop the head and just swap out the different parts. And then it does come with a pair of swap out feet. These are his cloud walking shoes that give him the ability to fly essentially. And there's some nice details here. You got two different purples, you got some shinies and some flats, you've got some white lining throughout, a little gold detail there. And it's nice that they're including the pegs, because pegging this part in is pretty easy, but getting this part in and out is a real pain. So I like seeing the peg included in the foot. The foot might be a little more energy to get it out of there, but it's not too bad. Like, it pops out pretty easily. And then you can take the shoe and pop that in. Again, a little tougher than the head, but not too crazy. Takes a little more energy, a little more effort to get it in there. But once you do, there's how he looks with his cloud walking shoes right there. And then there's just another quick look at those feet once removed. And then I just wanted to lay all these out so you can see everything it comes with in terms of head options. So you've got the 2 heads and then the 4 face plates. These 2 are the same sculpt with different paint, and these 2 are the same sculpt with the same respective different paint. And these just pop right in. There's no effort whatsoever to swapping these and switching around. So a lot of fun playability with these head sculpts. And then there are 3 total sets of hands. So this set that I have on him is an open-handed gesturing kind of look. And then there's a pair of gripping hands with vertical hinges and a pair of gripping hands with horizontal hinges. So you got both options there. And then moving on from the swap out parts, we have accessories that he can hold. You have the staff here. It's his iron staff that can sort of grow and shrink, and it's incredibly heavy. It's like, I don't know, like 100 tons or something like that, showing his power. Almost reminds me of like Thor's hammer or something, but this can shrink and grow to whatever needs he wants. So very powerful weapon right here. Here we have a Peach of Immortality. This is something that he eats in the heavens. Like the gods are supposed to eat like 1 a year to remain immortal, but he goes in and like eats like 100 of them or something. And then we have a little drinking gourd that's also tied to the heavenly story. I think it's like a heavenly wine or something that he carries in here. And that's got a little hook that can hook onto the belt. And finally, we have 2 scroll cases. And so this is part of the story where they're seeking the sutras of Buddha, and these would presumably be the scrolls that they bring back in their quest for knowledge. And again, they paid attention to every little detail on the sculpture and paintwork on this thing. Next up, for articulation, the head is on a ball joint, and it can look up and down, and it can cock side to side, and it of course can twist all the way around. So just no real limitations to the head. The cloth gets out of the way. Nice movement up there. The shoulder pauldrons peg in onto the back, and so those are essentially on a hinge, and those can kind of get out of the way. And with those kind of moved out of the way, you can swing the arm up into a T-pose with that hinge, and then it's also on a swivel. If you remove the pauldron, it will swing all the way around. You do have a single jointed elbow that comes up just about 90 degrees and comes back down to the straight position. And there's a twist above the elbow there. There's a twist at the forearm, and then there's a twist at the wrist and a hinge at the wrist. And with this sort of elongated hand, I feel like this range is really good on this compared to some of the other Legion's hands. I do have a little blemish right here. That's not a mold issue because I have multiple examples of this sculpt from numerous figures, and they don't have that. So something happened here when they're pulling it out of the mold, or in the assembly or something. And this side is fine over here. None of that issue there on that side. So I'm sure that's just a one-off situation. And then as far as the waist goes, it is on a ball joint, and there's usually a good amount of range, but this belt is pretty substantial. So he can crunch forward a little bit, and then he can crunch back that far, maybe a little bit more than that. And then he can kind of go side to side. And of course he can twist. And then as far as the legs, they can kick straight out. Again, the belt and the skirt pieces can definitely get in the way of things, but they can kick back, and then he can go out into the splits. There's a twist at the top of the thigh. Hard to see. There's just so much skirt and belt going on here. And then you do have a single jointed knee that comes up a little past 90 degrees there. There's a twist below the knee, and then there's an ankle twist, a hinge at the ankle, and then a rocker as well. So between those splits and that rocker, can get into some nice wide stances. And so there are some limitations when it comes to the Mythic Legions buck in terms of articulation, but there's plenty to do, a lot of fun posing with. It's not Mafex level or Marvel Legends level of hyper posability, but there's a lot of useful articulation, and you could do a lot of fun posing and different positions with these Legions and Figura Obscura figures. Next up, we've got some swaps that utilize parts from Sun Wukong, and this first one I'm calling the Golden Warlord. Of course, here we have Magnus primarily. This is the Magnus body with most of the armor from Sun Wukong. And then you have the cape from the Gorgo 2 from the 2-pack. We also have that alternate head from Calavius, which has some browns, and I'm not quite sold on this look, but I really wanted to get those golden antlers from the Bronze Dwarf involved, which I think are awesome on this look. And then, of course, the sword as well from that Bronze Dwarf. So Golden Warlord, I think, is looking pretty solid here. All right, next up, we have a bit of a Jinn or Genie look. I took the Krampus body. I used the Demon head sculpt from the All-Star 6 2-pack. I did use Magnus's forearms there just to keep the arms a little shorter. Those monkey forearms are pretty elongated. But yeah, and I like the way the shoes kind of give almost an option to have Genie-style shoes on a figure like this. So I'm digging this Genie look right here. Next up, we have the Monkey King's head and hands on my favorite Knight build, which is a Templar body, pretty much arms, legs, armor, and then Vorthog's torso, a couple weapons and loincloth from some other places, but for the most part, just a really cool Knight build with that monkey's head on there. Real quick, easy option to use the extra hands. Give Krotos some furry hands. Obviously, these are monkey hands, but goats wouldn't have hands anyways. They would be hooves, so this works for me, and the colors match really well. Okay, one more fun look here. I wanted to try to get this into a 2.0 sized body, and the first thing I thought of was a goblin. And because this has a 1.0 structure, the figure that made the most sense to me was Swig, the new goblin from the All-Stars 6 wave, because that one comes with a neck peg that converts the 2.0 into the 1.0. Of course, it's a green goblin neck, so I threw basically the ribbon piece, the belt sort of thing that comes with Alithia. I threw that around the neck so that you couldn't really see the green, And this is pretty cool. Obviously, the head's really large for this body, but, you know, it's a fantastical monkey, and I think it kind of works as like a little guy. Okay, last but not least, I am going to pop this thing back together, and I just wanted to show you real quick. So from the knees up, so from there up and here, this is it. This is all that is original Mythic Legions parts. You have the sculpted cloth-like legs and arms. You have, of course, the same waist piece that all the figures have, and then you have that modular torso with the removable chest plates. So that's it for old parts, and everything else on this figure is brand new. Putting it back together, one of the neat things about this that's different from other figures is that it has both a plastic and cloth loincloth. So you have a hole in the cloth, which is brilliant. I'm assuming CJ came up with that idea. It's a really cool idea. And then you just pop the piece in there. So any one of these standard loincloth pieces will work with this new cloth piece. And then you have the skirt piece that just comes right over the top there. And then, of course, the belt goes right over that. And then this is threaded through these holes. And so that's the lower half sort of partly assembled. And this piece actually just pops on here. So this is a modular piece that is just a chest cover. And then that just pops right on here. And these you're probably going to need to heat up, so I'll do that off screen and get those on. And if you are messing around with it, you can see that there's a left and a right. So just kind of look inside there. For example, on here, you can see the R right on that side. So I've got those on there, and then you can just pop the hands right in there. The hands go in very easily. And then next up, I like to put the pauldrons on next. So we got one side, we got the other side there. And then one thing to remember is to put the neck piece on before the neck, because the neck sort of sits on top of this peg piece right there. And then next up, we put the neck in, and then throw the scarf over that, and the head. And then the tail just pegs right into this hole in the butt. And that's another place that I would recommend heating up. Typically with tails and legions, heat the hole in the butt and then put this in. So much fun popping and swapping and just trying different things out. Different even just within the one figure. Trying all different combinations of looks that you can have because he comes with so many parts. This figure is really something new. Like Figura Obscura has largely been, you know, like 90, maybe like 85% reuse or 90% reuse off Mythic Legions up to now. So this really feels like a big debut kind of figure. Like, here's the line, here's what we can do. Kind of like strutting their stuff now, not just experimenting, but full-fledged figures from top to bottom, brand new stuff. Just the core body is the original and everything else is specific to this figure. And again, just a huge thank you to Four Horsemen Studios for letting me be a part of this review and always just being so supportive of the DorkLair. You guys rock. I cannot wait to see you again at Mythic Weekend Legions Con coming up. We are only 6 months away. And until next time, may the Force be with you.